Shipping right now is the new Nikon 18-300 f3.5 to f5.6 DX lens. The release of this lens stirred up quite a bit of controversy and a little bit of confusion. For starters, Nikon already sells an 18-300mm FX lens. Plus, the new lens on the long end only gives you f6.3. I think it's a neat lens, but f6.3 is not going to do you any favors in low light. Depending upon your camera, it may even have trouble focusing at f6.3 because there simply isn't enough light being allowed into the camera. What does this lens have in its favor though? It may be the lightest all-in-one lens on the market. This lens is for shooting wide-angle architecture or landscapes 1 minute and then wildlife or outdoor sports the next. Obviously, it's a lens for an interchangeable lens DSLR, but not everyone wants a large collection of lenses or to be changing lenses in different conditions. Even people like me with a decent collection of lenses. Sometimes it's fun to just put a single lens on your camera and be ready for whatever comes your way. That got me thinking. Although I don't have this new lens, what would happen if I took my old 18-200 DX lens and tried to go out and do some serious work with it? Would it be up to the challenge? Or are the critics right? And these all-in-one lenses might be okay for almost anything, but not really very good at anything either. I knew this would be a bit more complicated than one of my usual self-portraits, so I enlisted the help of my trusty intern, Raymond. You may remember him from some of my past videos where I drag him on long hikes, make him carry a bunch of gear, and watch as the long desert trails bury him. Okay, no, I'm joking. Raymond's a trooper, and he accepted the challenge to take some photos while I did yoga in the forest. Part of the test was to push this lens as hard as we could. We used my D800, which automatically set itself to DX mode when this DX lens was mounted. Why the D800? Frankly, with its 36 megapixel sensor, even when you cut it down to the DX frame size, it still has millions of pixels to go around. As a DX camera, the D800 has 15 million pixels, which is more than my favorite DX camera, my D300S. For this shoot, I wanted to give this guy every advantage that I could. The shoot itself was a blast. It was me and my yoga mat in the woods. Besides the shoot itself, I highly recommend the woods. For yoga, hiking, or just being. Everything is better in the woods. Oh, and VIPs, at the end of this video, I'll tell you how you can see the entire gallery of images from this shoot, plus learn more about the technical settings. It was actually cool to work with Raymond and see how he took advantage of the variety of views that this lens offers. One moment he was on the ground in front of the yoga mat, the next he was further away and zooming in, and then he took some wider environmental shots, zoomed out and further back. After the shoot, I coerced Raymond to talk a bit about his experience with the lens.
A DX lens on an FX body, and a lens that does many things and masters none. And it proved today that it mastered none. But the key
It's true.
is to know the strengths and weaknesses of your lens and play to the strengths. So we made some adjustments on the spot, which actually improved things quite a bit.
It really does take solid technique and maybe a little bit of luck to get very sharp images with this lens. Now I'm being picky, but I know that many of you want me to be picky. The bottom line was that there were some focal lengths and distances where we couldn't get images as sharp as you would with a zoom dedicated to a certain focal range. Again though, we're dealing with a lens that goes from very wide to telephoto with the twist of a wrist. So we expected some compromises. f5.6 was a little rough. We did have the idea though to shoot at f6.3 at the long end, since that's what the new 18-300 does. Going from f5.6 to f6.3 made things quite a bit sharper. Of course, closing down the aperture forced us to slower shutter speeds and a bit higher ISO. It was a cloudy day, which did cause Raymond to further drive the ISO up a bit, but on newer cameras like the D800, you can do that without hesitation or apology. Okay, Snapchick, that was a lot of words. What's the bottom line? For starters, this is one sample of a product that we're talking about. There's a Gen 2 version of this 18-200 lens, two 18-300 lenses to choose from, and even a 28-300 FX do-it-all lens. I'm not talking about those lenses, just this one. Let's start with the low points so we can end on a high note later on. For this one, this definitely isn't like shooting with a prime. That can rarely be said about any zoom. And no, it's not like shooting with an expensive DX zoom like the 17-55 f2.8 or the FX 24-70 f2.8. It's not as sharp, and it can open up to f2.8 anywhere in the focal range. What it can do extremely well though is bring you from this to this in maybe a second. That's quicker than you can change lenses, and probably quicker than you can work if you were holding two bodies with two different lenses. In other words, There's no denying the flexibility of a do-it-all lens. Just understand, you're buying flexibility at the expense of excellence at any one focal length. Is a lens like this for you? As usual, that depends. If you insist upon tack-sharp images every time that stand up to the scrutiny of a one-to-one pixel inspection on your screen, move along and take a long, hard look at some prime lenses. This same holds true if you're a low-light shooter. In low light, you may be pushing the ISO to extremes with a do-it-all lens. If you like to pack a single lens and be well prepared for anything, a lens like this is something to take a look at. It's not quite the same as having a bag full of expensive lenses dedicated to certain tasks, but it certainly is a lot lighter and less expensive, and if you're careful and adjust to the limitations, you'll get plenty of keepers. I have a couple of the images that you saw today up at snapchick.com, plus a little bit of technical information. You can find a link to the post in the description of this video. Plus, VIPs, when you log in, you'll be able to see the entire gallery of images from the shoot, plus technical details on each one. Not a VIP, but curious about it? You can find out more at snapchick.com.